Good morning and welcome to How to Write a Book in 40 Hours. This is Getrude Matshe here in sunny Wellington, New Zealand. It's a beautiful Sunday morning and I have been trying to connect with my authors to continue our discussions on how to write a book and have been technically challenged. So I switched and I went on to Zoom for a few minutes and Zoom kicked me out 3 times. So they say when at first you don't succeed, try again. This is my 4th attempt, and I'm now going to do the webinar on Zoom and record it and then post it on Facebook so that you all have access to it. So to continue from our conversations from last week, I decided this morning to look at some of the obstacles that are there that can stop you from writing and completing your book. And to give you a few tips, ideas on how you can actually conquer them. What does it take to write a book? What obstacles are you going to face along the way? And if you're already writing the book, are the challenges you are facing normal? So I hope today will help you figure some of those things out. So we're going to start off with one of the biggest obstacles to book writing, and that obstacle is fear. One of the most difficult parts about writing a book comes before you even put a single word on the page. Every single author I have worked with, and I've worked with over 100 writers, are met with fear and self-doubt. People say, I never thought I'd be a good enough writer to finish writing the book. You know, who would like to read my book? Is my story inspiring enough to put out there? Well, the good news is, yes, you should finish writing. And yes, your life story is unique. There is only one you, and it is definitely worth putting out there. And I'll tell you why. They say that the richest places in the world are graveyards because they are full of people who had brilliant ideas, amazing life stories, and they did not have the courage to write it down on a piece of paper. They literally went to their graves with their stories. So do you want to be one of those people or not? So be brave and find a team that can help you. And the team could be an editor, it could be a proofreader, it could be a friend who reads your work as you go. And always, of course, get a professional editor to edit your book to help you make sure that it gets finished. Remember that you're not an editor and don't start self-editing as you go along the writing process. Your job is to tell the story, get it out of your head, and then everything else will follow. Now, when you have the right team around you, they will encourage you when you feel that self-doubt. They'll be there to support you when you get stuck, and they will tell you to keep on writing when you feel like quitting. So make sure you have a team. I'm already part of your team. You know that. So trust me when I say your story is worth getting out there. Trust yourself and have fun with the writing process. Another thing that can hold people back in sharing their personal stories is taking into consideration the people that your story could potentially affect. So the beautiful thing about writing a memoir is that it is just your memories. And you have poetic license to add things that you want to add, to leave things out you don't want to put in, if you have to protect people or protect yourself. There have been instances where people have shared their personal stories and have ended up being sued by an ex-spouse or somebody from their family. So be selective in what you put out there, because once it's published, you cannot take it back. And you do open yourself up for litigation and things going wrong. So how do you find the time? Time is another obstacle or limiting factor. How do you find the time to get things done? I've always said that you have to dedicate a specific time in the day where you are writing and writing consistently without fail. If you carve out a writing hour in your day, you will stick to it. Be realistic about what that writing time is. Like I said, I wrote my first book. I had 3 kids under the age of 12. I would come from work, help them with their homework, cook supper, put them to bed, and 2 a.m. became my writing hour. I used to find that if I went to bed at about 9:30, I could wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and write for a couple of hours. Sometimes I'll write until morning itself. And that's how I got my first book finished. Setting deadlines. Why is it important to set deadlines? They say that if you set a course, a ship on a course in the sea without a destination, will it ever get there? Deadlines are great in that you will get there if you have an end date as to when you want to have it finished. So put dates, weekly goals, monthly goals, annual goals. The deadline could be that you want to write 2,000 words every day, or you want to write 1 page of text a day. If you do that for 365 days of the year, you will get a 365-page manuscript by the end of the year. So set deadlines for yourself and be realistic about it as well, so that you meet those deadlines and those goals. Perfectionism is something that holds people back. I found that in working with authors over the last 5 years, people tend to want to write to perfection. Remember that you are not perfect. I am not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And that writing the first draft is sometimes the biggest challenge. So don't start self-editing. Don't start doubting yourself when you're writing. Don't try to make it perfect as you write. Just tell the story. You can go back and rewrite the book, but getting that first draft out is important. So don't be a perfectionist. When you hear that little voice in your head saying, it's not perfect, it's not perfect, tell the little voice to shut up. Tell the voice you're going to go back and revise it and perfect it. But for now, you've got to write. Allow yourself just to write, even if it feels messy. Perfectionism, one of the biggest things that stops people from writing the book. So, if you give yourself permission to write poorly, you will get over that little hurdle. Self-discipline. How do you remain self-disciplined to your cause? We talked about deadlines earlier, but self-discipline is like going to the gym, where you pay a gym membership and you try and make sure that you are there consistently once a week, every 2 weeks, or every day. So again, you've started writing your book, you know you've got a brilliant idea, you're feeling inspired. Just try to be disciplined. There will be ups and downs when you write. There'll be times when you will get heaps of inspiration, and there'll be times when you don't feel like writing at all. But the best thing to do is just to show up at the time that you commit to writing. Just go to your room and sit at your desk, even if you have no ideas. Something will come when you consistently show up. The other thing that can hold people back is family emergencies and illness. So how are you going to counter that? Sometimes you have to reset your goals, because these are things that you haven't planned for, that can come out of the blue. And if it's a family emergency, you have to make your family a priority. Sometimes people have chronic migraines that can derail them. Find ways of working around your limitations, especially if it is health related, to keep yourself going. Sometimes you just have to stop. There's no point in trying to keep writing when you are emotionally upset, sometimes just by stopping and experiencing the emotions that you're going through at that moment in time will help you as well. So stop if you have to, and then go back to the writing when you're feeling much better. This week, I've been talking to a lot of authors who are writing personal memoirs, very emotional personal memoirs. And I found that people start reliving their personal traumas and personal experiences while they're writing as well. So allow the writing process to be cathartic. I always say that sometimes when you retouch old wounds and you start reliving the pain and the sorrow and the sad emotions that come with it, it's because you have put a Band-Aid over a wound and not really tended to it in the past. And in the writing of the book, this will give you an opportunity to go back and actually tend to those wounds. So imagine you have a sore and it is septic and you've put a Band-Aid over it, and that septic sore is just festering, there's pus, and now you're going back in and you're cleaning that out and you're helping that wound to heal. That's what you can do with the writing process as well, especially when you've had traumatic experiences and you're having to relive them. And that's why writing can be very, very cathartic. And don't flee from the feelings that are coming up for you. Try and write into them. I'm going to repeat that. Don't flee from the feelings that you're experiencing. Try to write into them. Because as you experience them again, you'll be able to express them from that point of view. So it could be a trauma that happened when you were a child, and just through the writing, it all comes up again. Don't run away from the feelings. Allow yourself to feel it again and try and work through it that way. The next thing that could happen is, how do you keep the plot moving? How do you keep your story going so that not only you are inspired as you write it, but you inspire other people as well? It can be challenging to keep yourself motivated and going, but I think when you look at your goal and you see yourself achieving 5 pages, 10 pages, 20 pages in your writing, it is a great way to see that you're actually making progress. So you can write extensive chapters or summaries, or just a synopsis of each chapter to get you going. But just remember, do not stop. One of the biggest challenges that you're going to face is how to finish the book and actually deciding that the book is finished. A lot of people have asked me, Getrude, how long should my book be? And my answer to that is, how long is a piece of string? You could keep writing and writing and writing and trying to produce a 300-page manuscript and find that it was only actually 100 pages that you've written because you're trying to write to fill pages. I always know when a book is finished because it's a feeling that overcomes you when you know that it's done. In writing a memoir, you have to decide which part of your life you want to write about, and that becomes the biggest challenge. So decide upfront before you start. That's a tricky one. You will know when it's finished. And if you don't feel it's finished, you can always write a second book. So how long is a piece of string? Set your intention, decide what your goals are, and find a way to meet those goals effortlessly and with fun. So where do we go from here? Once you have decided on writing this book, we will go through a process where I will help you define what your personal branding strategy should be. So I'd like to welcome Wiley Miller. Wiley, I can see you're on the call. If you can hear me, say something so we can connect. If you have any questions, use the chat window to ask questions. It's really strange. I've been having a few technical issues today, and I'm not sure how to overcome them. So I'm just going to continue recording. And if people have questions, I can then answer them in next week's webinar. So how do you decide on a branding strategy for yourself? I personally found that the best way to decide on how you want to show up as an author is to research authors who have written the kind of books that you feel your book will fit into, the genre that you fit into. Or see successful people who have done something with their lives and see how they did it. How did they show up? I decided to model my personal branding on Oprah, mostly because I love everything she's ever done. She's a powerful woman, has an amazing presence, and her personal branding strategy is that she is the brand. Oprah is the brand. There isn't a single person on this green planet who doesn't know who Oprah is. So how did she do that? She would put her image on the front cover of every magazine she's ever published. And I've gone and done the same thing. All of my books have got my picture on the front cover. I did it too, mostly because I wanted people to remember who I was. As an inspirational speaker, I wanted to go out there in a really big way and give people a visual bite of who I was and a sound bite of me speaking. So decide on what your branding strategy should be. Sometimes you might want to use a symbol. When you think of brands like Nike and Apple, they have used very distinct symbols that need no explanation to the market. The minute you see the tick sign, you know it's Nike. The minute you see the Apple symbol, you know it's Apple. So what does that look like for you? And it could be a color scheme that you decide to use as part of your branding strategy. If I said to you right now, close your eyes and say Coca-Cola, you would close your eyes and say Coca-Cola, and you would see the colors red, yellow, red, white, and black, for example. Now I've got a few questions coming in, and I'm just going to see if I can answer. Simone, nice to meet you, and thank you for connecting with me this morning. Now, your question is, you've spoken to me about writing your book and about your experiences. Oh, yeah. So I'm just reading this quickly. Sorry, people, bear with me. So I will look at what you have written on your wall, Simone, after I finished this webinar. And it sounds like you have quite an adventurous thing you're trying to publish there. So I can't really focus on it now, but I promise I will look at it and get back to you later today. Love to see how I can help you with that. So I'm just going to put my recording on pause for a few minutes and respond to this. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. I'm good. Great to have you on the call.
Thank you so much for your time.
How are you?
I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm shocked. I'm just wow. I'm wowed every time with the human behaviour of this world. It's just absolute. I've never. You hear about it and you hear about things with what people go through, and then you just go, "Wow, I'm so lucky I don't have to go through that one." And then when you go and face something. Yeah, it sort of puts a bit of a different perspective on life again. So it's I've, I've I've sort of had a reflection on my balcony today, and I just went, who would have thought I would have gone down this track to unveil so much out of integrity and
Oh, wow.
treating people really badly, and you know, say I know it's everywhere. It's just maybe it's opening my eyes again on another view, but it's also, you know how the old saying says, if you stand for something or you stand for nothing.
Yes.
And when you do, you just go, that really pushes you as a human being on so many levels, because you know the integrity. If you're on the right side of the law, you got no problem. But until you get the law on to understand what is going on, you're on your own to get
Oh,
there. It's quite
wow.
amazing. So we're in the middle of it. We're in the eye of the storm, so to speak, and a rape case has come out that the police are currently investigating. It's gone into so many various ways that I didn't think possible because of one campaigning of standing up to our association that can't do the right thing for people. Well,
Oh,
yeah, and it's unravelling everything, and there's legal letters getting thrown everywhere. It's just hell for leather. And you just go, wow, if you know how, like, if you get a board of directors who decided to do the wrong thing, they have to stick by it
yes.
and they can't go back on it because you just got to keep it going. And it's amazing to watch these people do it.
And you're right in the middle of it, by the
Yeah,
sound of it.
yes. And it really does take up a lot of the time because we're a small group of healthcare practitioners calling on our peers to come together and know that there's something, and we can't say a lot of stuff because we're waiting on the privacy law regulators to come in, because they said, no, you definitely got a case here. And when you look at how it all started, it started with an extramarital affair that went wrong, and they brought it all into an association. I just went, this is nuts.
That's so crazy.
It was crazy. It's like you could not make this stuff up. You just can't make this stuff up. It would be a great Hollywood movie.
Oh, wow.
The biggest Hollywood, I don't know, it's just unraveling, even though we're not politicians, but it's one of the biggest associations in Australia who've got, you know, all modalities of natural therapies sitting underneath it. And you're just going, it's ran by a really rogue board of directors. And when you're trying to pull them down and go, no, you're doing the wrong thing, they will fight tooth and nail.
Oh, man.
Fight tooth and nail with you. So
So,
the only way you get around all of this is you go public.
so you want to write about it? Are you going to write it as a fiction book?
I'm not quite sure yet. I'm just thinking, I suppose I started one book when my father died. He died of an aggressive brain tumour, and I had a lot of anger, and I started writing a lot about vegetarianism, and all this thing about carbohydrates is really starting to create a lot of disease. And I just wrote that first book out of anger and frustration as a practitioner of 20 years trying to help save lives. And there's just so much information out on the website of like, well, who do you believe? What do you trust? And I never finished the book. It's still there.
Okay, so
And
you never published it?
no, it's not been published. It's still up to 20 chapters.
Oh, you've gone quite far.
I think it took me 2 days just to get that off my chest.
Wow.
And based on my experience of doing and helping people with aggressive cancers and cases that the doctors wouldn't take on, I've had oncologists chase me. I've had crazy shit happen because you're just trying to save lives.
Oh man.
These
So what
people
are
are
you
tough.
going to focus on, Simone?
I just want to I want to there's a couple of books I want to write, but I suppose the quickest way for me, because time is the thing, because I'm back at uni doing my master's in medical research. And did you find that it's best to dictaphone stuff down and then just send it off for people just to scribe it for you once you got it on the dictaphone? Or
Yes. I'm a ghostwriter,
yep,
and that's the fastest, quickest way to do it.
yep,
Is just record yourself telling the story and then get a ghostwriter who works on it for you. If
okay,
time is a limitation.
yep. And how, because I know ghostwriters can be quite expensive, which is good. I mean, you deserve the money because it takes time to really sit down and express it in a way that people understand it. Because I'm hopeless with writing. But I mean, what do you offer? Like, I mean, if you offer for ghostwriting and that, do you set up a joint venture or do you set up things? Because obviously not everyone's going to have tens of thousands of dollars to fork out.
Yeah, I charge $5,000
Yep.
for a 200-page manuscript. And then, of course, if it's going to be more than that, we just pro rata that.
Yep.
And so I stick strictly to that price, and you'll get the book written and edited at that price.
Okay, then.
Some people will, depending on the person's budget, will ask for a certain amount up front.
Yep.
And then, like you say, go into it like a joint venture, or you make a promise that the first 100 books to be sold, you pay them, or the
Yes.
first 200 books, or whatever that could be. I have
Yep.
done that for a few friends in the past, where they pay me $1,000 up front, and
Yep.
then they just commit that as the book is selling, they pay me what they owe me. I
Okay.
think it's better to do it that way, because if you go into a joint venture deal with someone, it means that the intellectual IP is no longer yours.
Yep.
It means that, let's say, for instance, this story is ever picked up as a movie deal, you don't have total control. And I wouldn't recommend you lose control of your intellectual ideas.
Okay.
Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
like you're saying, the story that you're working on now, there is potential there for it to be turned into a movie. And if that's going to be the case, you do not have 100% ownership of that content if you've
Yep.
done a joint venture deal with a writer.
Yep. Yep.
So that would be my only recommendation.
Okay.
And the other thing about letting go of your rights is you lose opportunities to sell and repurpose your content.
Okay.
By repurposing of content, I mean, like, for instance, I go to the Frankfurt Book Fair every year and I take
Yep.
people's books. And you can get a book that's written in English and sell it in French, Italian, German, Japanese, Chinese. So the
Yep.
same piece of content can generate a lot of money for you. You get an average of 5 to 35,000 euro per language.
Okay.
You retain the intellectual IP of the English version, but all you're doing is selling the rights for that book to be published in other languages. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So,
It's
and then
another world out there.
your book can be turned into a board game. You can create artifacts to go with the book. I had one lady who created a whole jewelry line based on some of the symbols in her book. So
Oh,
things like
wow.
that. You have to kind of think ahead. What else can this book do? You can turn a book into a workshop to teach.
Yep.
So the more
Uh,
you can hold on to your intellectual IP, the better.
Okay. Yep. I understand now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you're going to be offered $1 million or more than $1 million for a manuscript, I wouldn't let go of my rights.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Understand. So okay, then we'll yeah, I guess, and I think there was a situation. I wanted to write a book as well because I had a really fun time in Japan when I lived over there, and I actually was able to sit in the Prime Minister's office, and I went through his whole file fax.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if I really should be saying that in the book because I don't want to get put in jail.
Oh, gosh, Simone.
Isn't it funny? Like you can write a book and then I'll release it on my deathbed, but then I don't want them going after my daughter either.
No, that would not be good.
No, but I got photos to prove it.
Wow.
I know, I've had such a wild life, just a wild life, and sometimes I want to say stuff, but then I don't want to implicate myself. I've never
Yes,
done anything wrong. Like,
careful. It
yeah,
has
I've
to
never,
be
I've
worth
never
it.
gone. Sorry.
I said it has to be worth it.
Look, I've never done anything like out of my, like, broken any laws as such. It was just that the security guards let me in. So I've never been in jail or anything like that. I don't do anything stupid like that. It's just, it was just a situation when they said, yeah, come in, have a look.
Oh,
He's
wow.
over in the States with George Bush talking about terrorism.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I
You've
know.
lived
So
an adventurous life, Simone.
I have, and I guess there's things I'd like to share, but I'm scared of being bloody locked up away.
Okay, so why don't you write it as fiction?
All right.
That's one way to get around the limitations of real life situations that could get you into trouble,
Yes.
is to fictionalize the experiences and write a novel instead,
Okay.
or to write it under a nom de plume and use another name.
Okay.
Change the places, change the names in the book, so it can never be traced back to your real experience.
Yes. Yep.
There's so
That's
many
a
different ways to tell a story.
For sure. For sure. Okay then. No, that sounds really good. Yeah, look, I'd love to do that, and it's always been in the background to do something, I suppose. I'm just getting back on my feet because I've had 4 different lawsuits to get through, not against me personally, again, to clear up a lot of stuff. So trust me, I'm not in jail. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just situations that I seem to get myself into. And the latest one is a truck driver totaling my car because he couldn't turn around
Oh,
properly
wow.
and it was for sale that day, and it was getting sold that day, and it got smashed that day.
Are you serious?
I had to take a photo of it and send it to the buyer and said, well, I don't think you'll be picking up this today.
Oh, my gosh.
So the police dropped the case and said they couldn't be bothered with it. And so I rang up the police station and I said, I want to have a meeting with your boss. And they said, why? And I said, well, I don't think justice has been served. And I said, if you don't serve it, I said, I'll put you on the news. And I said, I'll put a formal complaint against you with the local MP. He goes, let me get the paperwork for you.
Oh, my gosh.
So I've never thought in my entire life I'd have to deal with situations like this, and then to stand up for it and go, and this is why people get pushed around, because they don't know how to stand.
Yes, I don't know their rights.
They don't know their rights and stuff like that. And I don't know either. But I've had to go up and phone up a friend and go, what do I do? Constantly, what do I do?
That is so crazy.
It
So
is
why do you
crazy.
think you're attracting all these controversial issues?
It's a good point. I was sort of asking that myself, going, am I attracting it? And you sometimes you don't want to pull yourself down as a negative. It could be something, lessons that I need to learn. Yes, I get that. But I tell you what, one thing I've had to learn was doesn't matter what situations get thrown at you in this world, you definitely have to either stand up or you walk away. You have to make those decisions each time.
Yes.
Some fights you can fight, some ones you just can't. I mean, that's right. And the one time when I was in Africa, I got held at gunpoint, you know. It's like those times, it's just such a defining moments in my life.
You just write a book, The Adventures of Simone.
and yeah, so I'm trying not to pull myself down as if I'm someone that's attracting things negatively into my life, but I definitely am thinking about that at the moment. Yeah. So you've caught me right in the middle of reflecting. What the hell am I doing?
Oh, love it. I absolutely love it.
It's feeling a bit raw at the moment. I'm in a real raw position. It's sort of a bit ouchy, but what do you do? Like, I don't get depressed. I do get very upset and angry, but I can't lash out with anyone. It's like you're just going to sit there and strategize every moment of my life. Like it's a strategy.
Oh, wow.
So, but yeah, I just needed some clarity, because sometimes I'm a bit afraid to say stuff without thinking that it could land me up in a situation that I can't get out of. But also want to say, you know, this is what I did to get out of it, or this is what I did to ask for help, or it's always good to have friends on the wrong side of the law if you need protection.
Gosh, I can't wait to read this book now.
You might have to help me write it.
Oh my gosh, this sounds exciting.
Because I've got that much in my head and I'm forgetting things because the brain just doesn't have the memory capacity.
Like, hold on to all this stuff.
We just can't. And people ring up and go, remember that time? And I go, no. Was there a time? Was there?
Wow.
Because I can't remember a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I just came back from Zimbabwe, and I met up with one of my cousins. I haven't seen her in like 30 years. And we were just talking about the good old days. And she said to me, do you remember the time when you stole that car? I'm like, what? I never stole a car. That reminded me. I told my kids, they just laugh. They're like, Mom, how can you steal a car? And I'm like, oh, I did. And I actually remember I had gone to a party, and the person who was supposed to take me home decided they weren't going to do that and took me to their house. And yeah, I could have been sexually assaulted. And so I waited until they had fallen asleep, and I stole a car.
But they're the antics you get up to as a teenager.
Oh my gosh. And I've always thought of myself as this really good little girl who never got up to mischief, but that part of my mind, of my life, had blanked out completely.
They're the good old days, aren't they, where there was no harm or anything like that goes on.
Oh gosh, the things we go through.
We do.
So what you need to do is to decide which one of these stories gives you the most energy.
Yep.
Which one is going to be the fun, quick, easy write? And then if I can take you down a process where you learn to write that one, the rest will follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
It has to be easy and effortless and light and fun. Fun is the operative word.
Okay, then. This will probably help me because fun's been out of my life for a bit.
So you need to bring that back.
That's right.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you've made me decide to do the same, just to write about my adventures.
Yeah,
And I
they're
must
good.
say, I have had quite a few adventures in my life. Oh my gosh, the places I found myself, the things I've done. It's crazy. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the time when you test life, isn't it? You just want to test the boundaries and see if you get away with it, and then you lose all of that once you get older and you've had some hard knocks in
Yes.
life.
And then you lose the fun, you lose that lightheartedness in life.
Yes, and then everything becomes too serious again, and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had entitled my adventure book The Diary of the African Nomad,
That's great.
because I have been a bit of a nomad, and it chronicles all of the crazy stuff that happened during my travels since I was 19.
Yes,
And when I list the number of near misses of just weird things that have happened to me, and I'm still here.
you're still here.
I'm still
You've got
here
you've
to
still got a
tell the
purpose.
tale.
Well, you've got such a strong purpose to help others.
Oh, life is fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Life
most
is
definitely,
fun.
most definitely. Well, with my surname, our whole family saying was, "Don't make the sleep name Mud." So the whole
Don't get what?
don't make the sleep name Mud. You know how like if you
Oh,
sling mud, it sticks. Because my grandparents we're pretty high up in the Freemasons, right? There was a lot of stuff that my grandparents got up to, and they were always hanging out with the Australian prime ministers, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. And so because they've hung out with dignitaries, it was like you've got to uphold the surname of the sleep surname, and you can't have anything that resembles anything that's bad or anything like that.
nothing notorious.
Yeah, we're a notorious bunch.
Oh my gosh.
I want to title like the sleep name is Mud.
Oh my gosh. You'll have a few relatives on your back with that.
Well, they're nearly dead. They're nearly gone. We're
A
dying. We're
generational
dying.
thing.
So I think that whole analogy of like you got to be like a upstanding citizen in your town, and because we're country folk, the word would always spread very quickly. If
Oh,
something went on, it's like that. So you couldn't afford to have scandalous things said about you.
yes.
So until my father had an affair on my mother in town, and the whole town knew about it, even when the priest came around. So yeah, oh my God. So everyone knew about it.
Oh, God. That's the thing about small towns, though.
Small towns, they speak big.
They do.
They just can't afford to do anything that gets out and about. So,
Oh, gosh.
but anyway, but yeah, look, I think maybe
Saying. So basically, with the ghostwriting process, the best thing is just to tell the story and just do a brain dump, everything
yeah,
that you can think of. And then we will go back and look at the material once the audio is transcribed and decide what to keep in the book and what to keep out.
yeah,
Or you can then decide to split your material into several books,
yeah,
do a sequence of books, because what's happening now is, especially in writing memoirs, I wrote a memoir almost 15 years ago, and
yeah.
it was my life from when I left Africa in 2001 up until that point. And now the sequel to that memoir is coming out, and this is 10 years later. So every 10 years, you can write about chunks of your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So it doesn't all have to be done at once. And what happens with books that are written that way is that people will love to know what happened next to the person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the series are really in now. People like to buy books that come in groups of 3s or 4s. A series of books is better than one.
Okay.
So I'm
Great.
looking forward to working with you, Simone. Thank you for jumping on the call.
Thank you for having me.
And
Yeah,
I will share our little recording with the rest of the group so people can be inspired to think about their stories and think a little outside the box on how to go about it.
okay, great.
You sound like you've had an amazing life. Just inbox me when you're ready.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much for your time. Have a
Take
great time.
care.
Bye.
Bye.